car, SUV, or truck, guess what? You're in luck. Frontier Motors is down the street. Got the best deals that can't be beat. Don't overpay, come in today. Doing business the old-fashioned way. Frontier, we've got the right price. Frontier, we'll treat you mighty nice. Frontier Motors, low overhead country.
Yes, indeed. Low overhead country is what it's all about. They're located at 230 Beverly Parkway, which is not very far from where we're broadcasting from at this very moment here on North W Street. You're cordially invited to attend the show today. Give us a call if you'd like to get the price of a car, truck, or SUV that you're thinking of buying or selling or trading in. You'll have that opportunity, and you'll be able to talk with Ivan Struckel, the owner of that fine establishment. 478-3116, and talk to Ivan. Ivan?
This is Ivan at Frontier Motors, and thank you for watching this on Blab TV. We are video recording this for our Blab customers on cable and on satellite, and we also are doing this live for 1370, which we've been going on this show now almost 20 years. We started in 1996, and here it is going to be 2016 very soon. So what we do on the show is we talk about what's going on in the car industry. This is not just about Frontier Motors. Obviously, one of the things reasons we do this advertising show, so to speak, is kind of a double format. Number one, to talk about the fact that there is a dealership in the Pensacola area that helps people in the Pensacola area make sure they get a good deal if they're in the car market. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to buy it from Frontier Motors. There's 104 car dealerships in Pensacola. If you don't know that, that's quite a few for the size of our community, which means there's a lot of cars out there. But if you find a car somewhere, how do you know if it's a good deal? How do you know if it's a good car? How do you know what Consumers Report says are problems with that particular car? And that's where we come in, because we are in the business. And we have been, I've been in the car business since I was 15 years old. So I've got a lot of experience as far as which car is a good car, bad car throughout the years. Back in 1972 is when I started. And so I've got a pretty good history as far as what happens throughout the ages in particular cars. And just because a car has a problem one year doesn't mean that it's going to have a problem the next year. And one of the examples I always use is a Dodge pickup truck. I had a gentleman in the other day looking at buying a pickup truck, and we had exactly what he's looking for on the lot, but it was a Dodge. Or actually, it was a Ram truck. They don't call them Dodges anymore. It was a Ram 1500, a 2014 model, had very few miles on it. It was a color he liked, but he says, I don't want a Dodge. And I said, well, why not? He says, well, I just don't want one. I said, well, there must be a reason. He says, well, about 20 years ago, I had a Dodge and transmission went out on it, and I told myself I'd never buy another one. Well, folks, guess what? They've got Consumers Reports right here, and Consumers Reports says the best large truck is a Dodge Ram. Well, actually, again, it's not a Dodge anymore. It's a Ram. It's not the number one selling. The number one selling truck in the United States is still an F-150. Actually, the number one selling vehicle in the United States, whether it be a car or truck, is an F-150. Number two is a Chevy Silverado. Number three is a Ram truck. So the top three selling vehicles in the U.S. are gas-guzzling pickup trucks. Kind of unusual. I guess nobody cares anymore. Thing is, this morning on the news, I noticed that the average price per gallon of gas in Florida is about $1.99 a gallon. The cheapest one, they said, I think it was in Kansas, it was $1.59. So hopefully our price of fuel will drop even lower, which means pickup trucks are going to sell even more. But what I'm getting at, folks, is that just because they build a vehicle with a problem one year doesn't mean it's always going to be like that. And right now, if you looked at a Ram pickup truck, you'll be pleasantly surprised that it's rated one of the best vehicles. If you're going to buy a brand new car, what we can do is help you by sharing the new car cost guides, which we subscribe to. We have these guides come to us at Frontier Motors about 5-6 times a year. And what it does is it gives us the invoice price of a vehicle, which means that it not only tells me the list price, it also tells me what the dealer paid. Now, when you go to Consumers Reports, on the back of every Consumers Reports, they have an article that you can buy an invoice, and you can buy an invoice and it costs $14. Well, why would you pay $14 to Consumers Reports to buy an invoice when you can get one at no charge from Frontier Motors? And Consumers Report says, don't overpay on that brand new car. Subscribe to an invoice for $14. And they said the average MSRP savings was $2,990. And I'm saying, well, that's great. And I think it helps you when you go car shopping. it helps you save time if you know what the dealer paid. Because the one thing I always think of is people sometimes make a ridiculous offer not knowing what the markup is of the car. Well, if you knew that the retail price of the car was $30,000 and the dealer cost was, let's say, $27,000, doesn't that help you kind of make an offer that's kind of legitimate? The dealer's going to have to make some money. You're going to get the rebates and incentives. And the other thing we can help you with while you're at Frontier Motors getting that price on that new car is give us 10 to 15 minutes maximum, and we're going to appraise your trade-in for you. And I think it would be really a good idea to get a second opinion on the trade. Now, I know that you can go to the internet. I've got the internet right here, and you can Google used car prices. And when you do that, you're going to get an Edmunds, Kelley Blue Book, and an NADA Consumer's Version. What we use at Frontier Motors is we use the Black Wholesale Guidebook, which you can't get on the internet, by the way. This is kind of a secret book, and these books tell you what's going on at the auctions. So we have that book, and then we also have a official NADA guidebook, which again is not available at your public library. It's not available online. You got to be a car dealership, a bank, an insurance company, a credit union to get this book. Now, why do we use this book and not the Edmunds or not the Kelley Blue Book? Well, one reason is because our insurance companies and our banks use this one in our area. And that's the reason. It's not because I don't trust the other books. It's just the fact that these are the ones used. Now, sometimes the other books are higher or lower. They're not in the dealer's advantage a lot of times. Sometimes I'd rather use the Kelley Blue Book because it says the vehicle is worth more than what this NADA guidebook. But I use this book because that's what your banker is going to go by when they determine how much they'll finance. And that's where the difference comes in, that the bankers really don't know what a car is worth. The bankers know what the book value of a car is. And one of the things I'm talking about, for example, is when you're buying a used car, the looks of the used car, the eye appeal of the used car has a lot to do with the price. But guess what? This book doesn't ask you the eye appeal of the car. It doesn't ask you what color the car is. And don't you think that color has something to do with the value of a car? I think it does. The general public has a perception of which color is a good color or a bad color. I know last year the number one selling color in the nation was silver. Number two was white, and then black and red right behind it, which means that blues and greens and burgundies and those other ones weren't as popular. It doesn't mean they don't sell. They just weren't as popular. Well, that has to do with the value of the vehicle. What's the other thing that's important when you're talking about values? Well, one of the things that this book doesn't show you is the condition of the car. This gives you a loan value and it gives you retail. It doesn't compensate for condition. When I use this Black Wholesale Guidebook, which the banks don't use, there can be as much as a $4,000 to $5,000 difference between the condition and all. Well, actually more than that. I just opened it up to a 2010 GMC pickup truck, a Sierra SL. Rough book, this is wholesale, is $12,200. Extra clean is $21,000. That's a $9,000 spread between rough condition and extra clean. Now I know that's a extreme example. Average wholesale is $15,500 and clean wholesale is $19,300. So just between average and clean is almost a $4,000 difference in the price of that car. And that's why it gets confusing when you price a car. I know it's confusing for me sometimes because I'll look at the auction and it'll say, well, this average selling price of a car is $20,000. I'm looking at the one that I'm looking at and it's $23,000. Well, why is that one more? Well, the auction rates them from 0 to 5. Mine's rated a 5 that I buy. Matter of fact, at Frontier Motors, if it's not a 4 or above, I don't even look at the car. It's not our job to buy a mediocre car and try to make it into a nice car. I always feel that if somebody didn't take care of the car cosmetically, they also didn't take care of it mechanically. That's just a rule of thumb. That's not necessarily true, but that's the way I look at it. If a car looks like a rat, it's probably a rat. So I don't mess around with it. And what we do is we handpick only the best cars, and I've got to weed through a lot of them because my goal is to get the car with the most equipment, the lowest mileage, and the best condition for the best, and still get the best price on it. And I've got a program called Price Driver that I can plug in that tells me every vehicle that's available within a 150-mile radius. It actually defaults to 150 miles. I can set it for whatever. I was looking at a Corvette the other day that I had a customer interested in, so I wanted to find out, how many Corvettes are around? Well, there weren't a lot of Corvettes in our area, so I went out 500 miles and I found 50. But in our area, there's only like 7 of them. So it didn't give me a good idea of what they were really going for, so I went outside the area and I found out exactly the least expensive ones. I always throw the cheapest ones in the toilet. And you should too. When you're looking for cars, if you go on AutoTrader or Cars.com and you're looking for a truck, for example, and you find one that's really, really a good price, stay away from it. There's something wrong with it. And obviously, you want to stay away from the expensive ones. That's some dealer trying to get greedy, asking the moon for it. What you want to do is focus your attention on the ones in the middle and find the one with the lowest mileages and the highest content of equipment, and of course, in the best condition. Now, everybody's going to tell you the vehicle's in good condition. That's one thing that gets a little frustrating when you're talking about condition, because the pictures all look great, but when you get there, they're not. And that's why I send a buyer to the auction. I don't buy. There's a lot of dealerships. I know a lot of the dealers in the area, and I know how they buy cars. And you know what? They sit on their computer and they buy a car. They never see the car until it hits the lot. Well, what if it hits the lot and it smells like smoke? How can you smell it through the internet? You can't. Who wants a smoker's car? Even smokers don't want a smoker car. They want to be the first ones to smoke in that car. They don't want to be the second ones. I kind of snicker when that happens. Because I've had people come in. Well, I have had smokers buy cars and they say, I don't smoke in my car. So obviously they want a non-smoker car. It's also easier to sell. You don't want to hide the smoke smell. So I make sure that my buyers don't smoke, and that when they go to the auction, they buy cars that are non-smoking. They buy cars that aren't nicked up and scratched up and dented. They buy cars that have clean history reports, Carfax and AutoCheck, which, by the way, while I'm not on that subject, if you want a free Carfax, it costs you like almost $50 for Carfax. I don't know if you've Googled it lately. It's crazy. It used to be $40. Now it's like $44 plus the taxes. Frontier Motors will run a Carfax at no charge. Call us anytime. If you're watching this on TV, it's on the bottom of the screen on your TV right now. If you're listening to this on WCOA Radio, the number of the dealership is 436-8080. That's 436-8080. And just talk to one of our sales guys. They can pop it up. Any of the sales guys can take care of you. Our managers can take care of you. And we'll tell you what the Carfax says. We do Carfax and we do AutoCheck. The reason we run two of them is why not get two opinions? Same thing when we're talking about getting an opinion on what your car's worth. You're going to go to a dealer of your choice. If you're going to buy a brand new Lexus, for example, you're going to go to Lexus Mobile and you're going to toss them the keys for your car and they're going to tell you your car's worth $20,000. Wouldn't it be nice to know that Frontier Motors appraised the car for $23,000 and they're appraising it for $20,000? What's the next thing you're going to do? You're going to say, no way. And they're going to say, well, why do you say that? Well, I was over at Frontier Motors, and they told me they gave me $23,000 for my car, and I'm not even buying a car from them. I'm buying a car from you. I'm looking at a $50,000 Lexus from you, and you're giving me less money for my trade-in. What is up with that? So it's nice to be in the driver's seat when you know what you're talking about. It's just one. I think there might be one in Fort Walton, but there's one in Mobile, and you go there, and you compare it to the price of a new one. And one of the things that we talk about depreciation, even Dave Ramsey, who, if you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, he is the money guru. He's the guy that tells you, hey, how are you going to get out of debt? Well, one way to get out of debt is not to get into debt by buying a brand new car. Let me tell you what he says.
Hey there, Dave Ramsey here. They finally did it. Consumer Reports finally put into writing what I've been telling you for years. In April's edition, on page 21, Consumer Reports says the average selling price of a new car last year was $34,000. The first year's depreciation was a whopping 27%, which equates into roughly a $9,200 loss in the first year alone. And after 4 years, that car dove in value $19,000. My friends at Frontier Motors have been helping people in the Pensacola area save thousands of dollars by specializing in the sale of 1- and 2-year-old cars and trucks. They've been around for 20 years. These aren't your typical used car guys. Even if you don't buy a car from Frontier Motors, stop in and let them give you a second opinion on what your trade-in might be worth. Honest people, free advice, huge savings over new. Give Frontier Motors a try. And don't forget to tell them Dave Ramsey sent you.
The cool thing is I've got the article right here from that Dave's talking about, and it was in April's edition of Consumers Reports. And they talk about the depreciation. This is the first time now I've been talking about depreciation since we've been open at Frontier Motors, because that's really, if I was going to say what's our claim to fame, what do you specialize in? We really don't specialize in anything, but if I was pressed to say what do we do more of than anything else, and that is sell the alternative to new. I mentioned some of the cars that we have on a lot that have 400, 500, 900 miles on. I can go on. I've got pages and pages of cars that have less than 15,000 miles on it. A 15 GMC New Buy Style Canyon we just got with 11,000 miles on it. Ford Focus with 11,000 miles on it. A Ram pickup truck with 13,000 miles on it. It goes on and on and on. This morning we had 348 cars in inventory. I'd say 200 of those are low mileage cars that are still under factory warranty. The rest of them are cars that we've taken in trade that can be sold for sometimes under $10,000. The last time I checked last week, we had 55 cars that we could sell for under $10,000 that we took in trade. I don't buy the old cars at the auction because the auctions sell them as is. I only buy new cars that are guaranteed at the auctions, like the ones we're talking about here with 400 and 500 miles on. Those I can buy at the auction because the auction guarantees that they're not going to have any issues. Things that you would be worried about. Things like, how do I know if they've been in a flood? Well, they're guaranteed against that. How do I know if there is not an odometer problem? How do I know that the vehicle hasn't been totaled? Or how do I know there's not a lemon law buyback? All those things, they guarantee that if that is a factor, that is going to be announced. So we don't buy those cars. Now, the older cars, I take in trade on these cars where I can talk to the person that bought the car, that owned the car. Have they had the timing belt changed on it? Has it been in an accident? Have you had any issues with the car? What does the car need now? These are all questions that we ask our customers when they're trading the car in. A lot of times I have time to get the car inspected by our mechanic so that I have the ability to sell it to you and feel good about the fact that I'm selling you a car that's still going to have a lot of life left in it. And people that are buying a $10,000 car or even a $5,000 car, that's what their budget is. So they don't have a lot of money for repairs. So I have to even be doubly sure that I'm selling them a good car. Now, anything can break. But it's nice to know that you're coming to a dealership that warranties your cars as long as the car is 15 years old or newer and has under 150,000 miles on it. We put a 3-month, a 3,000 mile, 90-day warranty on that car, on the engine and transmission. The reason we do that is so you know that you're not buying a car with a bad engine and bad transmission. Don, do we have a call?
This is Gary on the phone.
Hey, Gary, thanks for calling the Frontier Motor Show. How can we help you?
Hi, I have a daughter who is a very budget-conscious young lady,
Okay.
and she is planning to buy a vehicle probably by next fall.
Okay.
And with her budget consciousness, I was just wondering, what should she plan on setting aside for your doc fees, taxes, and such, and a reasonable amount of a down payment for a vehicle? She's probably looking at something like maybe a Honda Accord, a Honda Civic, something along that line, maybe a 1 or 2 year old vehicle.
Well, one of the things that obviously we would ask if she's going to be financing it, like you said, you can put a little bit of money down and then finance the balance, is, of course, where does she have to be on payments? And that's kind of a stupid question from a car dealership. I hate asking the customer, well, what do you want your payments to be? Because it's like opening a can of words. But let's just say hypothetically she says, well, I don't want to be over $200 a month. Well, that would be nice to know for us, so we're not showing you a car, that's going to be $400 a month. So that's going to be a factor. Now, you're up the right tree when you're talking about Honda, Toyota, Nissan. Some of the domestics are pretty decent cars, like, for example, a Ford Focus or a Ford Fusion. My mom had a Focus. She drove it for 150,000 miles, and it's still running right now. My brother's driving it, and it drives really good. So you don't necessarily have to get a Honda to get a good car these days. The doc fee that we have, matter of fact, I've got a folder. That's a good question you have. I want to get off a tangent a little bit here because the doc fee is something the dealer charges. I consider that a profit fee. It allows the dealers to sell the car cheaper because they have a doc fee. You have to be real careful because there's some dealerships charging a $6.99 doc fee. I actually have purchase orders that I've accumulated throughout the years. I've got a folder that says doc fees because there's different dealerships charging different fees. Ours is $2.99. The way you calculate taxes is if you live in Escambia County, just take whatever the price of the car is. Let's just say it's $10,000. So you calculate that by 6%. And add $75. So it would be $675 for tax if you're buying a car that's exactly $10,000. In Santa Rosa County, it's the same thing. It's 6%, and you add $25. So there's a difference of $50 in tax between both counties. So it's easy enough to calculate the taxes. The other thing that you have to be careful of is that if she's going to need a new tag, to buy a brand new tag and a title and a registration, the first time out costs you around $400. So it's quite expensive the first time around. Now, to renew that every year is quite inexpensive. It's like $30 or $40. But the first time they're going to sock it to you. If she's transferring a tag from another family member, it's going to be more like about $200. But the first time is going to be about $400. So that gives you some idea. So if you got a $300 dock fee, you got a $400 tag, that's $700, and you got about $700 taxes. So you figure if you're buying a $10,000 car, your fees are going to be $1,400. So I have customers, sometimes they come in and they'll say, I've got $10,000, but that's out the door. So I've got to back that down, and you've got about $8,800 that I can sell my car for $8,800, because then their out the door figure is going to be $10,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, pretty much. So I guess kind of in a ballpark figure then, it's with a little bit more pricier car. You could figure maybe setting aside 15 or 20% of a target price that she might be looking at. To pay for your title and all that, plus have a little bit paid down on the car.
Yeah, and I guess go ahead, Gary.
Would that be a reasonable guesstimate? Like 15, 20%. I mean, of course, the more you put down, the better. But
yeah, and it really depends on your credit. I mean, if she's got no credit, she's going to need a cosigner, or she's going to need a big chunk down. So let's just say hypothetically, if she's looking at a $8,000 car. So now you're going to be at about $9,200 out the door. So let's say she puts down $1,500 or even $2,000 if she can afford to save that much. Now you've got about a $7,000 loan, which probably equates into like a $150 a month car payment. So it really, your fees, like I just said, are going to depend on the price of the car that you're buying. Now, the dock fee never changes as far as the dollar amount of the car. The only thing that changes is the taxes. So it's 6%. So if you're buying a $5,000 car, you're at that point, if your taxes are going to be about $300. So that goes down. So I'm not sure if 15% would be right, but I think you're really close by saying your fees are going to be about 15%. Not quite that much.
Okay.
Right. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it. And folks, we've got a lot of customers, our first-time buyers that come in. They're buying their first car. It's very exciting for them. Well, one of the things that I always tell customers that when you come to Frontier Motors, it's the way that we do business that sets us apart from the competition. We don't play those goofy games like you see at some car dealerships where they come and they ask you something like, well, number one, they try to sell you something you don't want. That doesn't mean that we won't show you something that you're not interested in, but we don't want to sell you something that you don't want. If you come in and I've got a customer comes in and says, I want a Honda Civic, and you just get a dealership that doesn't sell Hondas, they're going to try to sell you a Ford Focus, they're going to try to sell you a Chevy Spark, they're going to try to sell you something else, which is obviously their job. By coming to an independent dealership like Frontier Motors, the advantage is we sell all makes and models. So I don't really care what you want to buy because we have them all sitting there. Don, do we have another call?
This is Mac.
Hey, Matt. Is it Mac?
Yeah, MAC.
Hey, Mac. Thanks for calling the Frontier Motor Show. How can we help you?
Yes, sir. I'd like for you to give me a price on my truck, please.
Okay, what you got?
I got a 2012 F-150. It's got a 6-foot bed.
All right.
4-wheel drive.
Is it a Ford?
Yes. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
All right, hold on. Let me go through it, Matt, because it kind of asked me a couple of questions here. And let me get to the Ford truck section. I'm in the Ford cars right now. Here we go. Ford trucks, and you said it was a 150 model. So let me get to that. And obviously, I mean, out of all the appraisals to do, the trucks are the hardest because there's so many different versions. And you have a regular cab, 6-foot, or is it extended cab or a crew cab?
Crew cab. And
Okay.
it's a Lariat.
It's a Lariat crew cab, 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive?
4-wheel drive.
Okay. So let me get to that. Here we go. Lariat Super Crew, 4-wheel drive. And the next thing it asks me is how many miles you got?
59.
Okay. It's a very desirable truck. I think you're going to do real good with it. And what it asks me for equipment is, do you have the 3.5 EcoBoost or do you have the 5-liter V8?
EcoBoost.
Okay. And that's actually a pretty good ad. And I'm assuming you're going to have things like, what it asked me is, do you have navigation?
Yes.
And how about electric sunroof?
No.
All right. And I'm going to hit trailer hitch because I know you got a trailer hitch. They do add for the Sony stereo system, $350. Do you have the upgraded Sony system?
Yes.
Okay. And you might have, I'm not going to hit snowplow package. I'm assuming you don't have the snowplow package.
No. I special ordered this truck, and I ordered it specifically without the sunroof.
Okay.
And I ordered it with the 36-gallon tank.
Yeah, you know the funny thing is I actually have a customer looking for that truck, Mac. I've got a customer right now that's looking for, and he specifically wants a 36-gallon tank. You know what? I can't figure out how to tell if they got a 36-gallon tank or not, unless you have the window sticker. So it's kind of interesting that you have the perspective on it. And let me tell you what the book says on. I'm using the NEDA book right now, Mac, which is the book that the banks are going to use. And this is going to be very important if you decide to sell it yourself, or if you decide to trade into a dealership. It says the low, which is the loan value, is 27.2. The high, which is the retail, is 33.8. So you got a pretty big spread there. You got almost a $7,000 spread between the low and the high. Now, what's reality? I think reality would be if you come to a car dealership, you got a 2012 with 59,000 miles on it. It's a pretty loaded Lariat, four-wheel drive. I think you're probably going to get an appraisal, a wholesale appraisal somewhere, probably $2,000 more than that loan figure. So I'm going to say it's like somewhere between 29 and 30,000 is what you're going to get from a dealership. Let's just say you walked into the Ford store and you say, hey, I want to get a 2016 new body style F-150, and you make your best possible deal, and then you toss them the keys for your truck. I think they're going to appraise it somewhere between 29 and 30.
Okay. It also has a camper shell, not that it would, increase it that much more, but
It does. It does. It gives you an ad of
sprayed bed liner and and all that.
Yeah, the shell actually adds $800, Mac. So it does give you a pretty good ad for the camper shell.
Okay, so if I was looking at a new vehicle, where should I hold my guns for that I want for that truck?
I would say, well, number one, you stop in at Frontier Motors first, and let me give you an official appraisal in writing of what I'll buy that truck for. So, because I'll buy that truck whether you buy something from me or not. So, whether that figure be 27 or 30,000, you want to know that figure because you want to the place that you do business with, you want to make sure they give you at least what I'm giving you if you're not buying from me. That makes sense. So, just pop in. It takes you 15 minutes. Any of my guys will look at it and we'll give you a hard line figure on it. Okay.
I do appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
much.
much.
Appreciate it.
All right.
We only got 2 minutes left, so I'm going to rattle on here for 2 minutes, talking a little bit about Frontier Motors, which this has been a helpful show. We've given two or three people, we've given them values on their vehicles. We've given advice as far as what's a good car, bad car. If you got a first-time buyer in the family, bring them to Frontier Motors, and you got 350 cars to look at. By the way, our salespeople unlock every car every morning, so you can shop at your leisure. We'll give you a price list so you know how much every car is. That's another question a lot of people have. Well, you don't have prices on the cars. We don't plaster prices on the windshield. I don't want it to look like a used car lot, but we have a price list we can hand you so you know what every car we're asking for that car. We can give you the book values of the car. We can tell you what your car is worth. We can run a history report on the car. We can tell you what your car is worth if you get in an accident. We can tell you what your car is worth if it's been totaled, because you want to know that. You want to make sure the insurance company is treating it properly. We want to make sure that you also can check us out on the website. You can Google Frontier Motors, and you're going to see that we have 348 cars this morning. You can like us on Facebook. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can actually see this videotape that we're doing right now on Blab Show. You can see it on YouTube and give an idea of what we talk about. If you missed the show and you think it's exciting, you can go ahead and watch it, which I doubt, but just in case you do think that it's worth watching, you can see what my mug looks like, because a lot of people have been listening to the show for years, and Don, I have people coming to the dealership all the time that say, hey, they don't see me, they hear me. Because they don't know what I look like, but they've heard the show for years.
Recognize the voice, yeah.
So if you need some free advice, you stop at Frontier Motors. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Auf Wiedersehen.
Got the best deals that can't be beat. Don't overpay. Come in today. Doing business the old-fashioned way. Frontier. We got the right price. Frontier. We'll treat you mighty nice. Frontier Motors. Low overhead country.